Hey guys, welcome to Robot Fight Club. My name is Lucas, and in today's video I'm going to be breaking down how my 3D printed plastic ant-weight STÜRMBOCKE performed at March Mayhem, which was an event held by Richmond Area Bot Instigated Destruction on March 2nd. I had a really great time, and I'm very excited to show you guys how it all went, so let's get into it. So the way I'm going to do this, just to kind of make it a little bit shorter of a video, I'm just going to play all the fights and talk over to give my commentary and all that good stuff. I may do a little bit to kind of show some of the pieces that I got from the robots I fought, but other than that, I'm just going to show the fights, so let's get on with that. So my first fight was against a TPU kit called Grizzly. It's just a big TPU wedge lifter robot. And unfortunately, in this fight, the stream kind of glitched out a little bit, so I don't have the full fight here. But basically what happened is he started to be very aggressive, and at first he was getting some pretty good action against me, but as time went on, damage on his robot just kind of built up. So I just wanted to show the wedge from Grizzly. He ended up giving this to me after the fight, after I completely ripped it off his robot. So what happened in that fight after the video cut out, I was able to deliver a lot of hits and eventually tear this wedge right off the front. And at about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, my battery started to die and my robot was basically moving extremely slowly. The weapon stopped working and I barely made it to the 3-minute mark to finish the fight. Went to the judges, and with all the damage that I'd been able to do to his robot, I ended up taking the win. But very, very close. I was very close to getting knocked out, so that was definitely scary. For the rest of the event, I was very conscious about making sure I didn't drain my batteries. I do think the lipos that I was using were a little bit old and probably starting to deteriorate, so I'm probably going to order some new ones before I fight this one again. But anyways, as you can see, just tearing chunks out of this wedge, causing a lot of pulling apart at the layer lines, and then just taking these arms, cracking them off completely just from the shock going into this thing. So pretty cool fight, really enjoyed it, and now I was on to my next fight against Asmodeus. This is a cool fight for me because Asmodeus is the first robot I ever fought with STÜRMBOCKE, and I ended up getting beat pretty bad, and he caused a lot of damage. So with the improvements I made, I was confident I could bring the fight to him this time around, so I was super excited to get this shot at revenge and redemption. Asmodeus is a very, very durable and just overall solid vertical spinner. So I knew this was going to be a tough fight for sure, but I was confident I could bring the fight to him and cause a lot of damage as long as my new weapon held up. So here at the beginning, I did start to get some pretty good hits. I do believe my weapon had a higher tip speed than his, so when we came into contact, it was usually more beneficial for me. My goal here at the beginning of the fight was just to go in like balls to the wall and try to cause as much damage as I could to really give myself a lasting advantage in the fight. So I'm just trying to, my big thought was to try to disable that weapon. So I'm just going straight at him, trying to do that. It's right around this time I'm able to get kind of that hit that changes the tide of the fight. I'm just hitting into him, He's being very aggressive, and then that hit right there hits into his weapon and causes that front wedge to come off. And his weapon wasn't quite the same after this. Right there I just blew a chunk out of the weapon, which is part of the tooth, so that was definitely very, very advantageous to me in this fight. I'm able to just keep attacking. At this point, he's not really able to do much against me. Just delivering those big shots and trying to kind of grind him down. I'm also being conscious here now that I've gotten a lasting advantage to make sure I don't run out of battery and knock myself out. So I am starting to kind of let that weapon spin down and just push him to try to save battery. And then with about 10 seconds here in the fight, I turn the weapon on, he spins his weapon up, and we just, each of us just try to attack each other and cause as much damage as we can. Anyways, I end up winning that fight by judge's decision. So here's the weapon from Asmodeus. As you can see, I was able to take that tooth completely off and basically disable his weapon that way. So really cool piece from that fight, and was happy to get that win against a super good robot and move on to my next fight. My next fight is against Acid Arrow, and this is against the same team as Asmodeus. He built this robot for his brother, so his brother was driving. One thing coming into this fight that I was pretty confident about is just the fact that he didn't have any type of configuration against a horizontal spinner, so I was pretty confident I'd be able to cause a lot of damage to the front end of his robot. Already starting to do that, bend his forks out of the way. And on that first big hit, I did tweak his right side drive, and he was not able to really drive correctly for the rest of the fight. However, it wasn't bad enough to where he was knocked out at any point, so still a very tough robot, and I was going to have to keep attacking if I wanted to take this fight home. But as you can see, doesn't have a whole lot of movement, and the front end of his robot is just getting increasingly beat up by that blade on STÜRMBOCKE. So far, I've been super happy with the durability of the weapon, which was my biggest concern coming in, was just making sure that weapon was solid, was going to be the #1 priority, and the #1 thing that was going to help me win fights. So really happy up to this point that I've been able to keep that weapon going at 100% for all the fights. One thing I've kind of noticed about plastic ant weights as opposed to like a normal ant weight is it just seems much harder to get a knockout. Just the forces involved just aren't as high, so it's a lot easier and a lot more common, I think, for a fight to go the full 3 minutes or the full 2 minutes, whatever the time limit may be, as opposed to a full combat ant weight, just because the forces aren't as high. So at this point, basically the whole front of his robot is destroyed, and the lifter's gone. But like I said, I just cannot get that knockout. And again in this fight, trying to make sure I don't just die because my battery runs out of juice, so trying to be a little bit careful. I believe I was spinning a little bit more slowly for like the back half of this fight. I did kind of try to back off a few times to see if he get counted out, but he was showing, enough movement to not get counted out, so I figured in the last 10 seconds I might as well just keep attacking as much as I could and get those points in the judges' categories. So that fight went very well, ended up getting the judge's decision and another win. Up next is Dust Devil, which is a drum spinner. It's very, very solidly constructed and has done very well at almost all the events it's attended so far. So this was a fight I was definitely looking forward to, but also could potentially see that there might be a bit of a problem fighting a robot like this. So at the beginning, he was doing a very good job just staying on me and actually delivered quite a few really good hits at the start. I knew that if he kept getting these like combination shots on me, it would be a tough fight, but I am trying to, get space and get that weapon up to speed. Thankfully, I have a really high torque motor in my weapon, so it spins up very quickly. I'm using a 910 kV motor. I believe it's a 28. I don't know the exact size of the motor, but it's very large, so able to really get up to speed quickly and deliver those hits, recover fast from losing momentum and stuff like that. So now it's my turn to start to land some of these big combination shots. His weapon is starting to kind of experience a few issues, and I'm able to actually land some very large shots, which I was kind of surprised by. So at this point, his drive has kind of suffered a lot of damage. He's using N20 motors, which are not as shock resistant as a lot of other motors, so that probably has something to do with his drive kind of going out. But eventually, he just stops moving completely, and I get the win in this fight as well. This puts my record at 4-0 going into the final fight of the day. Here is the frame and weapon from Dust Devil. He ended up giving this to me after the fight. This weapon is extremely heavy. Solid print drum, very deadly, but I was able to basically blow apart his whole tooth here. He still had some surface, but definitely caused a lot of damage there. And then this part is from his chassis. Basically, as you can see on this side, this is the upright for the weapon, and this went right there, and I ended up kind of hitting it and it cracked off, so caused a lot of damage to the chassis of his robot and the weapon, and like you saw in the video, he eventually was knocked out. So super cool fight, happy to get the win against such a great robot, and move on to my next fight. So my last fight of the day is against Deatharang. This is a bristlebot with two weapons that weigh just as much as mine does, so he has a lot of firepower. The drive is extremely good and very fast for a bristlebot. And honestly, I was very worried about this fight just because of how destructive those weapons are. His robot's very tough, and he's won quite a few competitions with this robot, so I was definitely worried, but also very excited to be fighting another robot that uses an alternative form of movement. So one thing he did in this fight was he added some little half spheres to the top and bottom of his robot, so it angled those blades upwards. His kind of goal here was to hit more into my chassis and the legs instead of at my weapon. In retrospect, I talked to him, and it probably would have been better for him to try to actually hit my weapon, because I do believe his weapons would be more durable than mine, and he could have potentially taken out my weapon if he was hitting into it directly. But as it was, all the TPU in my chassis and legs were really helping to absorb all that shock from his weapons, and I was able to land a few solid hits. I'm able to be a little bit more aggressive just because my robot is faster, and I'm trying to kind of go around to the back, knock him into the walls and stuff. His weapons spin up very quickly, so that's kind of hard to avoid. I was pretty nervous with how much damage those things would do, but eventually I just kind of found that they weren't really actually causing too much damage, so I decided to more or less go right at them and just try to deliver as much aggression and control as I could. So at the end of this fight, damage actually looked very, very even. I do believe he got a slight edge, but actually looking back onto my robot after this fight, I actually had a lot more damage than I thought I did just leaving the fight. So he didn't do anything like major, but he definitely caused some damage. So that's one of the things I want to go over in my damage dissection video that should hopefully be coming out here in a week or two. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that if you're interested in seeing what happened to STÜRMBOCKE in this event in terms of damage. So really, the fight is kind of just the same all the way throughout. I'm able to be a little bit more aggressive and show a little bit more control, with damage being, apparently, it looks about equal. So this fight ends and I end up taking the win. So after beating Deatharang, that makes me the March Mayhem 2024 champion for the plastic antweight division, which is super cool. I've never won an antweight division before, so this really gives me the confidence and the knowledge that I'm just moving up in my abilities to build better robots and to perform better at competitions. Overall, huge thank you to the people at Rabid for putting this event on. It was an awesome event. Both of the events that I've been to that they've held have been phenomenal. Some of the best events I've ever attended. So I look forward to competing at more of these events in the future. Also, big thank you to everyone that competed against me and made it such a memorable day. It's all about the people there. That's what really makes it a good time. So I really appreciate everyone. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to stay tuned for that damage dissection video and for a video on my full combat antweight overdraft, which also competed. With that, have a great day. I look forward to hopefully competing against some of you guys in the future.